Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
The world of TCGs could see some serious changes. Actual Play sees the beginning of its newest streaming service, and we put on our tinfoil hats to discuss the future of the MCU, because that's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Casters Guild. I am your guild master, Rick Perry, and if you see me in the club, that's not me. It's an evil doppelganger.
And I'm your guild master, Rick Perry, and I'm actually the real Rick Perry.
Oh no, it's happening already! All right, digging into gaming news immediately. I personally am not a fan of this game. And I don't know if you are either, but I do know that several of our guild members are. Mm-hmm. And we have big news coming out of Dead by Daylight. Looking right off of Polygon.com, it looks like the next killer is Vecna from Dungeons & Dragons.
Not Stranger Things.
Correct.
So if anybody tries to get in there expecting to see Vecna from Stranger Things, you will be sorely disappointed.
And I could see why you would make that mistake, because Stranger Things has already done a crossover with Dead by Daylight, where we got the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, not to be confused with the Demogorgon from Dungeons & Dragons.
Can you imagine Demogorgon from Dungeons & Dragons as the killer in?
I feel like if anybody could figure out, it would be the people who make DBD, Dead by Daylight, because there have been quite a few killers on Dead by Daylight that I was like, how are they going to do that? Like Chucky, when they added
Chucky was a weird one, yeah.
I was like, how are they going to, but they figured it out. So
now I will say this though, I think it's harder for the Demogorgon,
right,
considering it's, skyscraper tall.
Agreed.
and has godlike powers.
Yeah, completely agree. Now, apparently this killer is going to play with a lot of really cool Dungeons & Dragons features. Unlike a lot of other killers, Vecna is actually going to have a pool of spells that he can use, including Mage Hand to stop pallets from falling, spectral servants he can send out to chase survivors. Anytime Vecna is the killer, 6 chests will spawn across the map, one of which will be a mimic, and when you attempt to open it, it will attempt to eat you. And the rest of them, when you open, there will be a d20 roll, and depending on the roll will depend on the quality of a magic item you receive to help you escape Vecna.
That's funny.
As well as a pair of elven bards, one male and one female, to be added to the list of survivors that you can play as.
Okay. I too am not a fan of the game, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of weirdly exciting, I guess. I would have never expected this kind of crossover before, considering the quality of killers that they have in it. And I don't mean like a bad quality, but I mean like these are movie-style killers, know?
Slashers, if you will.
Right, and I would say that very recently-ish, they have started putting in actual like movie villains, but even the original ones were kind of like
they were obviously villains. References to popular tropes.
Right.
That's not all Behavior Interactive announced about the game. They also announced a new 2v8 game mode where there will be 2 killers versus 8 survivors, which you think would be more complicated, but based off of watching the video and what they've announced, it sounds like an easier version of the game to play if you're newer to the game, if you ask me. They have gotten rid of a lot of the custom perk builds and just said, okay, you're a survivor, pick a class, this is what your class does, that's it, instead of a whole bunch of customizable things that you build out yourself, which has pros and cons. Your people who've been playing the game forever, of course, are going to want their custom builds, and then they can't get it in this mode. But people who are new to the game, it's going to be a whole lot easier to understand. They also announced their next killer that will be added. Well, not the next killer, but their next crossover. We don't know who the killer is going to be. We'll get more.
No, we have no clue who the next killer would be, would we, at all?
Well, let's go ahead and speculate as soon as we say that they've announced that the next crossover, we're going to get more information on it in August, is going to be Castlevania.
Wolfman. The Wolfman is the killer.
Okay. Obviously, what you're getting at is the obvious choice is Dracula, right?
Right.
But Castlevania does have a lot of really iconic monsters, especially from like public domain classic horror, like the Wolfman, Frankenstein. I think it wouldn't be out of the question for Death to be the killer that comes from Castlevania, because Death is a boss in just about every single Castlevania game, and I feel like he would fit.
I think if they did Death, though, I feel like either they would... I don't see them... If they do Death, I don't see them doing Castlevania's Death.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like using a Death that is essentially public domain would be... It would be... they'd be hog-tying themselves if they used a Death that was tied to an intellectual property.
I can see what you're saying.
Now, I could say, because Dracula is public domain as well.
Which was my thought, honestly.
But also, if you were going to use a Dracula from a intellectual property that is game-related, then yeah, I could see that.
They could also go a modern Castlevania route and just give us Gabriel Belmont, who eventually becomes Dracula.
Okay.
And they could just give us an early Gabriel Belmont, and then that would be less public domain and a whole lot more Castlevania specific than just saying, oh, Dracula.
Yeah, true. Either way, I want to see some flying Medusa heads.
Yes, that should definitely be one of the powers of whoever the DBD killer from Castlevania is. And then we've got to see, like, a Richter or an Alucard or something like that as one of the survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Simon. Nobody wants to see Simon.
I mean, except for in Captain N. I'm fine with that one.
If it's specifically the Captain N Simon, you're in.
Specifically, yes.
All of a sudden, the game you never play, it'll become your most played game. All right, in other gaming news, Square Enix is looking at backing off of their console exclusives. Apparently Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16 and another Square Enix game that was exclusive to PlayStation called Foam Stars. You might remember that one, Baron. We looked at it when it was announced, and it looked like a rave where you shooted all of your friends with white goo.
Oh, yes. Never mind.
But yeah, apparently none of them did very well. They all fell short on sales expectations, and due to that, Square Enix apparently lost a lot of shareholders, and their response to this is to start making more of their games available on more consoles and to stop committing to console exclusives, and most likely even bringing a lot of the games that are currently console exclusives to other consoles and stop making them exclusive.
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, competition is always a good thing, and console exclusives, I understand why companies that make consoles invest in console exclusives.
Correct.
And it's to sell systems.
Right.
But if more and more companies back out of making exclusive games, that means companies are going to have to rely on making good consoles to sell their consoles, making better consoles than the one next to them if they're going to have the exact same games available.
Yep, and I think that's kind of what consoles have been doing, is riding on that. Riding on the fact that we're only going to be able to play Final Fantasy on their console, or we're only going to be able to play Mass Effect on their console. You know, I had to choose an Xbox game. That was the first thing that popped in my head. Yeah, if they just stop doing that, definitely they're going to have to just be like, well, I guess we're going to have to do better then.
I will tell you, the only reason I own a PlayStation 5 is because of console exclusives. I would not have bought that expensive-ass console if not for the fact that I could play God of War and Spider-Man and all that stuff before anybody else could, years before anybody else could, before they finally get released on PC.
Right.
And I think even when I bought my PlayStation 5, I didn't even realize that a lot of those console exclusives were eventually coming to PC, or I might have held out anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to be one of those guys, but I have not found any reason to get consoles for games that I can just get on PCs.
Sure.
Because I don't know, I just feel like now, I used to be a console guy, you know, up and down. I, you know, still have a PlayStation 5 in my house. I have a Switch. That Switch is fun. I'll probably never be able to get away from getting a Nintendo console. I will probably never, ever be able to get away from that. But it's I don't know. It seems like it's more expensive in the upfront for a PC, but in terms of like long-term upgrading and stuff, it's cheaper. Like I don't have to buy a $600 console every 3 years.
You don't have to worry about backwards compatibility.
Yep.
And library's insane.
When I do get rid of, or let's just say I get a brand new, let's just say I have to get rid of my old computer and get a brand new computer. I still have access to all those games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to keep my old computer to be able to do what needs to be done.
There's a lot of positive and negatives. I will start by saying, as the Nintendo apologist I am, I also will always buy Nintendo's consoles. But I feel like when it comes to Nintendo consoles, they're doing more than just trying to release the next best console and have their exclusives sell it for them. Now, Nintendo exclusives do sell their consoles. Let's be real. Like, a lot of people would not be buying Nintendo consoles if it weren't for Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Pokemon, and they're awesome exclusives. But if I did not own a Nintendo Switch, like if Nintendo as a company did not exist, I would definitely own a Steam Deck. I don't currently, because I have my Switch, and yes, it's a completely different library of games, but when I want to game on the go, when I want that handheld, nothing beats the Switch. And having the option to switch it to console mode when I'm done being on the go and I want to play that game on the big screen is huge, at least for me. That could be different for other gamers. I don't know.
I mean, that's why I like the Switch for, like, let's keep it, you know, on the smaller scale. I loved that aspect of being able to, you know, let's just say I'm knee deep in some Baldur's Gate, and when I'm at home, I'm playing it on the big screen because why not? But let's just say that I'm addicted to the game and I don't want to leave it alone. If I go somewhere, I want to be able to play it where I go. I could take it with me. So yeah, I mean, I get that. And the Steam Deck is something that I have recently got for the Spawn, and he is loving it. Just loving it.
Yeah.
He is currently completely addicted to Fallout 4 and is just tearing it up on the Steam Deck.
And as long as Nintendo continues to innovate with their consoles, you know, you go from the Wii, for example, being like an entirely motion-controlled console, and then you had the Wii U, which I think was a bit of a misstep, but they learned a lot to make it towards their way to the Switch.
Excuse me, you said it wrong.
They missed the mark.
There we go. We cannot. I will never let us leave that alone. I will not leave that in 2023.
Sure.
I have to take it with us. I've heard it way too many times in 2020. It's ridiculous. Anyway.
And I think a lot of these consoles used to be very innovative. Like Sony and the PlayStation, they invented the dual analog controller, which is how we control games nowadays. Can you imagine first-person shooters without dual analog? I can. It's called GoldenEye, and it's terrible. It's a great game, but the way you control it is terrible.
Okay, calm down. Calm down, Baron. Calm down. All right.
But yeah, you can admit the way you controlled that game was terrible.
Well, okay, did I know it was terrible at the time? No, because that's all I had. I didn't have anything to compare it to.
Right.
If I had to go back to that, no, I would throw my console out the window.
Right. And then you have Xbox, who basically, I don't know if they invented console online gaming, but they definitely made it viable and made it popular.
That's the first I'd heard of it happening. I'm sure that there were other ones. Oh God, was Sega maybe the first one that did it?
Yeah, possibly Phantasy Star Online with the Dreamcast, which was a console MMO. And then there was, of course, Sega and Super Nintendo both had like Sega TV, and Nintendo had like where you could like download quote unquote games, almost like stream them temporarily. But if we're talking about easy, user friendly, viable online gaming against other people or with other people, Xbox more or less made that possible.
Sure.
And so they've all been innovative in the past. I think my argument here is that Nintendo keeps innovating and keeps trying to make something different. Whether it works or not, they're at least still trying. And Sony and Microsoft have just come to make it more powerful than the last one. And then using their
just to let you know, it looks like everybody did it before Xbox.
Yeah.
But Xbox made it. Yeah, like you said, probably more extensive with Xbox Live. But yeah, even GameCube in 2001, GameCube did online gaming, and
you had to
PlayStation
get an extra
2.
attachment for it. Same thing with PS2. You had to get an extra attachment for it.
Here's a series of words that you probably forgot about: Sega MegaNet.
Yeah,
for Mega Drive.
For the Mega Drive, yeah.
It's like I remember hearing those words years ago. That was back in '90.
Yeah.
So that was almost an '80s intervention, online gaming like that. 1988, Federation debuted on CompuNet. It was a text-based. Okay, we don't count text-based games.
Right.
Sorry. Air Warrior.
Just to bring it all back, I guess this just goes to say, I think it's nothing but good for the gamer if more and more companies make their games not exclusive, make them available everywhere. And then when companies want to sell their console, they got to make a better, more innovative console that makes me want to get their console instead of a PC. Because like you said, I'm still going to get the Nintendo because it does things that my PC does not. And when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, unless they got something to offer me, either something innovative that my PC can't do, or that does easier than my PC, or if they develop their own games to be console exclusive to make me want those consoles, they're just going to have to keep up.
Yep. And I will say this, if Square Enix was to make Final Fantasy console exclusive again, I would want them to go to Nintendo.
That's a bold statement.
That's how I found them.
I get it.
That's how I found it.
But games like, I don't know if games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth could be played on the Switch.
Maybe not.
I don't know if the Switch can handle it.
I also wasn't a big Final Fantasy fan either.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't. That's not my Final Fantasy.
Sure.
Though I have found tons of games on Steam that are like my style Final Fantasy, and I cannot wait to play them, but they're like $60.
Yeah, and there are Final Fantasy-like games, your Final Fantasy-like games, available on the Switch, like Octopath Traveler.
That's on Steam as well.
Yeah. It released it, I believe, I could be wrong, I believe it released as a Switch exclusive, but didn't stay that way for long.
Yeah, that game looks beautiful.
Yeah.
$60.
Is it still?
Yeah.
The original? Because, I mean, we've got Octopath Traveler 2 now.
Looking right at it. I'm looking right at it.
You know what? Let's look something up.
Okay.
If I were to go to GameStop.com and I were to want to buy a copy of Octopath Traveler for the Switch, how much would that set me back? Okay, get this. Octopath Traveler for the Switch is $50 new for the Switch.
Okay.
$47.49 if you get it pre-owned.
Okay.
Octopath Traveler 2 is $30 brand new.
Crazy. That's crazy. On Steam it's still $60. Yup.
But Octopath Traveler 2 is also available on PlayStation.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm kind of hoping that with all these non-console exclusives, maybe the prices will become more reasonable as well.
I don't see them going down, but we might see a slowdown on the raising of the prices. Like once $60 or $70, because I think 60 was the standard for a brand new game, and like 70 is becoming the standard for a brand new game. And once 70 becomes the standard, I don't see it going down.
Mm-hmm.
Once they have realized that the average gamer will pay $70, why would they lower it?
True.
But it might slow down the shift to, let's say, $80 or $90.
Oh, I'll tell you, as far as average gamers go, I have seriously started really cutting back on my game buying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the last big purchases I made were a few of the Fallout games because they were 80% off.
Yeah.
But past that, it's like, I can't, and I know we've talked about this before, but, you know, I can't rationalize paying that much money for a game.
I do find it very difficult to buy games at full retail. You know, I either wait for a sale or a coupon or get a gift card.
Mm-hmm.
There are exceptions. Games that I'm like, yes, I need that. I need it now. And I will pay full price for that game. Things like Legend of Zelda, God of War.
I think maybe the last full price game I bought was Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
Opening weekend.
Worth it.
It was, because I didn't have a single problem with it.
People will tell you it wasn't, but it was.
It was totally worth it. Loved it. Because I was in there, and then I got all the free shit that came out because they wanted to apologize to me for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a cool anime out of it because they wanted to apologize for nothing.
A really cool anime. And now,
really cool anime.
Just like we said last episode, we're getting a cool box for the TTRPG.
Yep.
Right, but going back to GameStop.
I'd rather not.
Apparently, and this is not 100% confirmed by GameStop or anything. I'll go into it a little bit more. Everything I'm reading on this article from Polygon. Mm-hmm. GameStop looks like it will start accepting graded Pokemon cards as trade-in.
Okay.
In which case, they'll probably be selling graded Pokemon cards as well.
Sure. Or like, yeah, selling them online, not for anybody to come in and get. Who knows?
Right. So, there's a lot of stipulations on this. First of all, like I said, GameStop has not confirmed that they're going to be doing this anytime soon. However, Polygon spoke with multiple GameStop locations in 4 different states: Arizona, Illinois, Florida, and New York. And stores in 3 of those states confirmed that the new offering had been communicated to them by the corporate office.
Okay.
They said they will only be accepting cards that have already been PSA graded. So they won't be grading any of these cards. You would have to go get your card graded on your own, and then it would be eligible for trade-in at GameStop.
50 cents. They
will only be taking cards that are graded on an 8 or higher.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Which, on a 10-point grading scale, you got to be pretty good condition to get 8 or higher. And they will not accept any cards valued higher than $500.
Okay. Which, I mean, I guess is fair, but a lot of stipulations on this.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of when I was working at GameStop and they started accepting Skylanders and Disney Infinity figures. I think it was called Disney Infinity. The Disney's figure game, whatever it was called.
Sure.
And amiibos, different NFC figures, they started accepting those in trade. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of stipulations on accepting those in trade, and it did not last very long.
Gotcha.
I think in the amount of time that I worked there, which was after the announcement of accepting NFC figures in trade, it was a couple years, and I think in that entire time I took 2 figures in as trade-ins. But yeah, especially when Skylanders was big, there was a time when basically if you brought in something like a controller to trade in, mm-hmm. GameStop didn't care what brand it was. GameStop didn't care any of that kind of stuff. It was a PlayStation controller, and you got the same amount for it no matter what it was. However, after Skylanders took off, basically they had different SKUs for every available Skylander. And with Skylander and Amiibo and the Disney figures, there's so many different ones and so many different variants, and they had SKUs for every single one of those. And it's not like you can just scan the figure with your little infrared scanner you had at the register. So you kind of had to have a working knowledge of all these different figures and look them up in the computer system so you could enter in the right SKU to trade it in. It just wasn't feasible.
Right.
And a lot of people either got over on GameStop by the cashier that they're working with not knowing what the person was handing them, and they get more value for it than they should have, or vice versa. Now, with it being PSA graded cards, maybe there'll be something different, like a number that you can type in that'll tell you exactly what you're supposed to be offering for a particular card. But just Charizard alone, for example, and how many different Charizard cards there are, I'm not sure how well this is going to go over.
Yeah, I mean, it's as someone who was in that world for a little while, not GameStop, but the buying and selling and trading of cards. There's a lot of risk to that, and it's rather ballsy of them to want to step up into that world. So yeah, I don't know, not like they are known for their great choices anyways. But
I will say, with over 3,000 stores in the United States, that's, if let's say all the stores do it, that's 3,000 potential locations to trade in cards. It would make them the largest retailer to deal in graded singles or collectibles.
That's fair.
In general.
Yeah. I will say this, though, I use the word worry lightly, but being worried about them kind of shooting themselves in the foot, not being able to, or like they offer too much money for a certain card, I'm pretty sure someone's going to come in there. Someone could come in there with like 5 grade 9 cards, one of them being the Charizard, capital T, capital C, and they're still only going to get $5 or $10 trade-in.
There's 100% the possibility of that. I will say, and here I go again defending the corporations. When I worked at GameStop, the average trade-in on a game was 1/3 of whatever GameStop was going to sell it for used, which I don't think is unreasonable for the amount that they had to keep on the shelves. The whole GameStop will give you 5 cents for the game thing started when people would bring in Madden 7 in order to get Madden 8. And so, yes, you paid $60 for that game a year ago, but GameStop's only giving you 25 cents because it's going to sit on the shelf. It's going to sit on the shelf forever, and no one's going to buy it because everyone's going to buy Madden 8, not Madden 7. And it was a lot of games like that GameStop would give like 5 cents or 10 cents for.
Well, I will say, too, that, as funny as I think that those meme ideas are, again, having ran a game store, having customers come in and bitching about you selling a pack of Magic cards for $3.99, which at the time was the retail price of a pack of Magic cards, it really says a lot about how people feel about how things should be priced.
Yeah.
And it's always the retailer's fault, not
of course,
not the company selling it to the retailers.
Yeah. And not even that, not even the retailer, but the employee who's standing in front of you in that particular moment.
Right, exactly. And it's funny too because I think half of it is this just them trying to haggle you when it's like, do you understand that I work for a corporation
Mm-hmm.
with set uniform prices on all of these essentially. I have to look these prices up at a computer and this is what they should be. So
And I can't change it.
I'm not losing my job because you want to save some money.
But yeah, if GameStop continues that trend, then whatever GameStop plans on selling that card for, they'll probably give about a third of that price. And you should be getting more for that card than a third of whatever GameStop is going to sell it for. Let me be clear with that. The reason you would trade something in at GameStop, and it's the reason GameStop has been in business for so long, is because you need it now. And if you were to go sell it yourself, find a retailer, a collectible shop that's going to give you more, or find an end user like a buyer who's going to give you what the card's actually worth, that takes time, that takes effort, that takes work. Whereas you can just go into GameStop and they'll give you a number and that's it. That's final. There is no work, there's no research, there's no anything else. It's the number. And yeah, you're probably going to get about a third or a half of what you could get elsewhere, but it's instant and it's easy.
Correct.
But speaking of trading card games, Lorcana is kind of taking over the TCG world. I know when I was at Gen Con last year, the Lorcana line was insane. And they have now released their new single player and co-op modes.
We're talking about so many things I just can't relate to today.
I think this is genius.
Weren't we talking shit about Lorcana just earlier this year?
I mean, I feel
like we were.
I was talking shit on the way Lorcana's release was handled at Gen Con.
Okay, who handled Lorcana's release?
I gotta imagine. I don't know. I think it had a lot to do with... Let me start over. All right. Ravensburger, who makes Lorcana...
burgers.
Pointed the finger at Gen Con.
Sure.
Gen Con pointed the finger at Ravensburger.
Sure. And they're probably both right.
And both of them had different reasons for pointing at the other. And both seemed to have valid points. Mm-hmm. I don't think either Gen Con or Ravensburger understood how wanted this game was going to be and the kind of crowds that they were going to be getting.
That's fair.
But I digress. The game itself is really good.
Sure.
And if you're trying to get younger gamers into a TCG, if you're a geek who's been playing TCG for a long time and you want a game you can play with your kids, it's fantastic. Now back to my original point.
Sure.
Of this single player and co-op version of the game being a genius move, I think other TCG games should be doing this. Essentially, what they've done is turned their TCG almost into a deck builder, where you can take decks that you've built for competitive play, or any deck for that matter, and put it against a boss monster and fight it with the same deck that you would use to play against other people in competitive play. Now, this does a lot of things for the game itself and for the gamers. One, if you have a friend who's super into the game, and then another friend who's like casually into the game, when it comes to competitive play, they're usually going to end up not having a ton of fun playing against each other, because the super competitive player is just going to run all over the casual player every single time.
Sure.
But this allows both of them to work together and play together cooperatively against the boss monster. It also gives another way of teaching how the game works to newer players, because you can sit there and cooperatively play with the person you're trying to teach how to play, and they can feel more open about asking, what does this card do and how does it work, without feeling like they're giving up some sort of competitive edge by letting the other person know what's in their hand. Then this actually got pointed out on the article here on Polygon. They had a family who liked to play Lorcana together, and there was a kid that was a little too young to really grasp the concepts of how to play. So they let the kid, quote unquote, play as the boss monster, who happens to be Ursula, by the way.
Sure.
And so Ursula has basically rules on how she works, so you don't have to know how to play the game. It's just flip this card over, then this card over, and that lets the players know how they have to react. So the kid got to play as Ursula and flip the cards over and got to giggle and laugh and have fun every time the grown-ups groaned at like the new thing that they had to deal with that Ursula just did to them.
That's cute.
Ursula also has 4 different difficulty levels. And they've pointed out that on the highest difficulty level, she can be pretty brutal. So it's a good way to test out new decks that you want to take into competitive play. Because if you have a deck that can stand up to a level 4 Ursula on its own without needing help from other players, then you've probably got a pretty strong deck.
Right.
So that's a lot of positives for this. And I honestly can't really see a negative to having this single player / co-op version of the game available, other than the fact that it's going to sell out and people are going to want it and it's going to get sold by scalpers and that sort of thing. But what can you really do about that except try to print as much as you can? But imagine if a game as popular as Magic the Gathering or Pokemon had a format like this that you could play. Like that would sell like gangbusters, I think. And I feel like more TCGs should be doing this.
I agree.
Being someone who has sold TCGs before, do you think having a single player cooperative player mode would have been easier to sell to kids and parents and stuff if that had been available for the TCGs you were selling at the time?
Yes. To those specific people, yes. Do I think that it would have been easy to sell in the store? No. Because everybody wanted that competitive shit.
Gotcha.
So I would sell like one little thing of the play by yourself stuff, and yeah, you can buy more and stuff like that, but once you get that pack and everything, you should be good to just play. But it's hard to. But what I do think though is, when I think of it in another way, is that is a good gateway to stepping onto the field,
right,
of a competitive nature.
And if you got really into it, like, yeah, you could play with the decks it came with, but you can also play it with any deck. So if they want to upgrade their decks to be able to take on the higher level versions of Ursula, that's more cards sold.
Yeah. But I mean, even that, though, is what I'm saying, is that's a limited amount that they would do. In terms of selling the most, it would definitely have to leak back into that competitive.
Sure.
What I would have done is got a few of my competitive guys to get those packs and teach these kids how to do it on their own. So that, hey, this is how you play on your own. And then they would play that, flipping the card as Ursula and all that stuff. But then, once they got the hang of it and they felt good about it, that's when you go, hey, you want to try to play me and see what happens? And, let them win. And then, it would go on from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's, we do live in a capitalist society, and apparently we have to take advantage of each other to make money off of each other. So unless you're rich, then they just make money off of us, and no one makes money off of them.
Lay sigh. But either way, I'd still think it would be a cool version to include in just about any TCG. Other TCGs, look at what they're doing, take note, maybe include this format into your card games. Yeah.
I imagine Magic would be a lot of fun like that. Play Magic by yourself, like the bad guy is a planeswalker of some kind. That could be fun.
And then team up with your buddy and go 2v1 against said planewalker. Yeah. I'd be much more likely to play TCGs because I'm not super competitive.
No, me neither.
At least okay, let me clarify. I am competitive. I'm not competitive enough for TCGs.
No, I'm just not competitive at all. At all. If I'm in a co-op game and I have someone trying to do all the shit before I can, I just let them do it because that's just how it is, I guess.
But if you are headed to your local TCG tournament and you're looking to turn some heads, you know where you could go?
I do.
tvillain.com.
That's not what I thought.
T-Villain is a t-shirt site where you'll find a killer limited edition shirt being sold for $13 only while supplies last. Every Monday, the site features a new design by a new artist.
We would tell you what's featured right now, but by the time you hear this, it's already changed.
They choose the most ingenious designs that reflect everything evil and villainy, as well as works pertaining to anything artistic, pulp style, lowbrow, pop culture, TV, movies, music, video games, comics, etc. All things cool and evil, basically. To check them out and help out Casters Guild, click our link in the description.
But speaking of some snazzy dreads, the newest season of Doctor Who is releasing episodes on Disney Plus. And the new Doctor is doing something that no other Doctor has done before. And that is change their clothes.
Snazzy dreads?
Yeah. I should have guessed duds and threads, I think is what I...
Yeah, I think so. Now it sounds like you're just saying dreads isn't like the hair color. Or the hairstyle.
I'm not cutting any of this out. Snazzy threads. Snazzy threads. Or, duds, or however you want to talk about clothes.
Sure, threads. Duddy threads. Now I sound British saying dirty threads.
Hey, that's bringing it back to Doctor Who.
Hey!
So yeah, Ncuti Gat was 15th Doctor, the new Doctor. Basically is really having fun with the role, and the writers, especially Russell T Davies, is saying they came into the series thinking that this will be the Doctor that can change clothes just as often as the companion does. The big reason being apparently budget, because when it comes to outfitting the Doctor and other main characters of certain television shows, it's not just a matter of getting new clothes. Because they're flying around, they're crashing through windows, they're doing stunts. These clothes have to have padding sewn into them or places that you can put hooks in order to put them on wires. So you got to make costumes and outfits for each of the characters, especially when you have a character like the Doctor who's doing all this stuff. So basically they would keep the same outfit, that way that one outfit could do all of those things, and now they have a larger budget so they can have more fun with the costume design.
Agreed. I think one of the big reasons to have, I guess, to have your protagonist in the same costume at all times is purely just for toys.
Yeah.
But, I mean, making them seem like a real person seems to be better to me, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, if we're going to use the toy argument, each outfit can be a new toy.
Okay, but...
Or, I mean, not trying to throw any wrenches in the system here, but Barbie's been doing it for a long time. You can sell a figure and then different outfits for that figure.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
But I think I've been talking with you for a while, and you're not a huge Doctor Who fan, right?
I mean, I like Doctor Who, but I'm not a huge fan.
I know I am. I know Ncuti's been a great choice for the role. It looks like they're really having fun with it.
Honestly, knowing what I know of the Doctor, I don't see a big problem with it. He is the Doctor. I mean, honestly, he talks like him. He moves like him. I mean, but I'm a fan of the Doctor enough to know what I'm trying to say right now.
Yeah, and anybody who also is a fan of the Doctor knows what you're saying right now.
Right. It's like he talks like the Doctor and moves like the Doctor in such a way that he moves nothing like the Doctor and talks nothing like the Doctor. But what I mean is, he is just over the top and eccentric enough to be unlike anybody else in the show.
Right.
And he pulls it off perfectly. So, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard it put better. That was fantastic.
Yeah. If I went from 2010 to now, and they showed me an episode with him in it, and they never referenced him as the Doctor or anything like that, I would know straight up that he was the Doctor.
And you wouldn't even have to wait for the sonic screwdriver to come out. You would just know.
Yeah.
And Ruby Sunday, I think, is a great choice for a companion as well. Of course, I'm using the character's name, not the actress's name, but she's doing fantastic as well. I think the writing is a lot better than the last season. The last season of The Last Doctor got a lot of hate, and I think a lot of that had to be with the fact that it was a female Doctor, and a lot of people were hating on that.
Same deal, though.
Right.
I don't understand. It's like, what do you want? She's not even technically the first female Doctor.
And I really liked that Doctor. I did not like the writing that season. But a lot of the old writers are back for this season, and I'm more on board now. I just want to clarify that I don't think that season was bad, or I don't even think that season was bad, but I don't think that season was as good as other seasons, not because of the Doctor, but because of the writing.
You know who literally is my least favorite Doctor? Christopher Eccleston.
Oh, I love 9.
No, good for you. But I just couldn't stand him. He was, I think did he only do one season?
Yeah.
I think if they would have let him do another season, I was going to say one more season, but if he only did one, if they would have let him do another season, I probably would have been able to enjoy that character a little more. But I don't know. He was just I don't want to say he was a dick because I liked Peter Capaldi's Doctor.
Right.
I also liked the first Doctor. I think another reason why I don't really enjoy Christopher Eccleston is because when a lot of people refer to the first Doctor, they're talking about him.
Oof. Yeah, they shouldn't be. He's 9. He's 9. He's not 1. He's 9. But I can see what you mean about his personality, because his personality as Doctor, he was broken, which he was supposed to be because of the story. But that doesn't mean, just because it's the way it's supposed to be, doesn't mean you have to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like he was wrote appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't care for him too much. And then also kind of his attitude with the whole thing afterwards. Like, he kind of wanted to distance himself from the whole thing. So maybe I'm just not a Christopher Eccleston fan.
Well, from what I understand, he distanced himself because some of the showrunners were being very elitist.
Gotcha.
And apparently they weren't treating people who weren't the main actors of the show very well, be it like PAs or extras or the catering. Apparently they just didn't treat people very well, and Christopher Eccleston just went, no, I'm not going to be a part of this project.
If you're going to treat the people like that, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Which, I mean, there's two sides to every story. Who knows if that's... I wasn't there. I couldn't tell you that's what happened. But that's
right.
Christopher's side of it.
Yeah.
But if you do want to watch some new shows, and Doctor Who isn't it for you, Critical Role is now launching its own subscription service.
So, yeah, all of you people who are subscribed to their Twitch probably take this as a sign.
Yeah, especially seeing as how... I mean, a Twitch subscription is usually $5 a month, right?
Yeah.
And this new subscription service they have called Beacon is $6 a month, or $60 for a year.
Same prices, drop out.
Yeah. Now, they have stated that if you are watching the show on YouTube or Twitch, that's not going away. You can still watch it on YouTube or Twitch for free, just like you could before, with the exact same release schedule.
Well, you can't watch it. Well, you can watch it for free on Twitch, but if you're subscribed to Twitch, you get to watch it day of. So that's probably something that they will not be doing on Beacon.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding on Twitch you could watch it live, but the VOD was not available immediately unless you were a subscriber.
They may have changed... Oh, wait, what do you mean? Maybe
the video on demand. So if you wanted to watch it afterwards, like if you weren't watching it live, if you just wanted to watch the video, like that was not available right away unless you were a subscriber.
It could be.
But that being said, the VODs is just going to be one of the things that is available right away if you are a subscriber to Beacon. They also said that there will be 2 new exclusive series to Beacon that we have not had before, including Critical Role Fireside Chat, which was described as another thing that you get from Beacon is access to like their community Discord. And Fireside Chat is basically Matt Mercer and other members of the cast, but usually Matt Mercer answering questions from the Discord. And then Critical Role Cooldown, which is a post-show kind of thing where Matt Mercer logs off after doing Critical Role, and all of the players give their reactions from the game right after the game, and that will be the show Critical Role Cooldown.
I think that would be a fun watch. I know Dimension 20 does that.
I did not know that.
In a way, yeah. They kind of have like a little sit down right afterwards and chat and stuff like that.
There'll be lots of other perks too. Critical Role Abridged is going to be on there. There's going to be an all ages actual play audio series called Reslayer's Take.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could be confusing two things there. But basically, there's going to be a whole bunch of extras that you get, as well as 10% off of all Critical Role merch. So yeah, if you're a Critical Role fan, this looks to be worth it to me. Me personally, I've never really gotten super into Critical Role, but you're a fan. What's your take on it?
How do I word this? I think it's a good idea. Obviously, it's working for Dropout, and I think that, to be quite honest, I believe that this is where they got the idea from. However, I think that I don't... Oh boy, how do I say this? I don't trust that they intend on staying at $5.99.
Okay.
I believe that they will end up putting out more content, obviously, and more perks and stuff, but I really don't see them staying at $5.99. They seem to have I'm really not trying to compare, but I don't know. I just got this feeling from like Dropout that, they're at that $5.99. They seem to be content at staying at that $5.99. I'm sure they'll go up at some point, but I really feel like Critical Role is embracing that corporate mindset, and it's been kind of making me uncomfortable as of late.
Okay, that's fair enough. I can't say one way or another whether or not that's correct, because I can't get a feeling from them because I haven't been watching their content. The only thing I can say is, if they do stay at $5.99, with it being the same amount that you would pay for a Twitch subscription or a YouTube membership or whatever, and it looks like you're getting a whole lot more, essentially all they're doing is cutting out the middleman, and instead of Twitch or YouTube getting a big cut of the subscription, they're getting the whole thing, which just means they can use that money to make better content. So at least in the short term, it seems good.
Yeah,
like you said, we'll see what they
them.
do. Yeah,
it's definitely good for them. I enjoy them. They seem to be great people. They're entertaining. If anybody was going to get that money between them, YouTube, or Twitch, I would want them to get it. But again, I don't know. Like I said, it just feels like, again, they're embracing that corporate mentality to a level that I'm not sure where it's going to go.
I get that. Moving on to a bit of Marvel news, be that Disney Marvel or Sony Marvel. It looks like Nic Cage has been officially cast in the live-action Spider-Man Noir series.
Sure, why not?
Let's break this down a little bit. I didn't even know that there was going to be a live-action Spider-Man Noir in a series.
Oh, yeah.
And first of all, on board with that. But hopefully... I assume, one, that this is being handled by Sony, since Sony is the one who has Spider-Man.
Well,
it is coming to Amazon Prime Video and MGM Plus, so I'm not sure who it's being handled by. I just know where it's going.
I will say that it being set up by MGM and Amazon Prime, MGM is owned by a consortium that owns Sony Pictures.
Okay.
So
that makes sense that it would be Sony.
Right. It's just kind of weird to me that why didn't they just do Sony Pictures?
It might be still produced by. It's just the only thing I know is that it's coming to MGM Plus and Amazon Prime Video. Like, that's where you'll be able to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. In October 2023, Amazon Studios absorbed MGM Holdings and rebranded itself as Amazon MGM Studios. So MGM is Amazon.
Okay.
Well, what did that mean by Kerkorian sold MGM to a consortium that included Sony Pictures? Does that mean Amazon owns Sony Pictures?
Or at least is a large stakeholder in it.
Yeah, fair.
Regardless,
Anyways, yeah, moving on.
If it's being handled by Sony, I hope it's being handled by the same people who are handling Spider-Verse. They seem to understand these characters. They seem to understand these stories. We've seen good stuff out of animated, and I hope that we can continue in live action. Nic Cage did a great job voicing Spider-Man Noir in the animated films. He has also gone on record saying he loves the character, and he likes getting to play in that era where, and I quote Nicolas Cage here when I say, I can combine my favorite Golden Age performances, i.e. Robinson, Cagney, Bogart, with a character that is, I guess, widely considered to be Stan Lee's masterpiece. I see it as kind of a foray into a pop art mashup, sort of a Liechtenstein mashup way of Bogart and Cagney.
Okay.
So I feel like he understands the character. I feel like he has fun with the character. Nicolas Cage is one of those actors where I personally feel the fact that he is in a role says nothing about the quality of the piece, be it show, TV, movie, whatever. Mm-hmm. If Nic Cage is in it, it could be amazing. It could be terrible. There's no way to tell. At least not by Nic Cage being in it.
Right, exactly.
I do want to point out that according to Geek Tyrant, with Nic Cage being in this role, it will mark his first regular television role of his entire career.
No, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Nic Cage is star of the big screen, man.
Yeah, but I mean, I would have imagined he would have been on a TV show at some point.
Well, there's a difference between being on a TV show and a regular role.
Correct. That's what I meant.
Because he probably has been on TV.
Fun fact, during this impromptu research that I have done on this rabbit hole that you set me down, MGM used to own the rights to Spider-Man.
Okay.
And they traded them to Sony. And I believe it was to avoid bankruptcy.
Okay. Does it say what they traded for, or was it more of just like a direct sale?
I think it was more like a, here you go. We don't want to go bankrupt kind of deal, so maybe money. Which, honestly, I didn't think that they were allowed to do. I thought that if they were to give up if any of these people who were sold these rights were to give up the rights to these Marvel characters, then they would just lose them.
I think that became part of the deal after Marvel got sold to Disney. So the rights were being traded around kind of willy-nilly until Disney bought Marvel. And then part of that stipulation, I think, was if any of the other Marvel properties that were owned by other subsidiaries that that Disney couldn't buy right now, if they ever attempted to offload them, it would have to be to Disney.
So it looks like in the middle of that year, 1998, MGM and Sony settled in an out-of-court lawsuit that saw MGM trading its Spider-Man film rights to Sony in exchange for gaining the rights to Casino Royale.
Okay, I could see that.
I mean,
I feel like Sony came out better in that deal.
They 100% did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that year
back in '98, it might look like they were coming out better. I mean, when it comes to like where was Spider-Man in '98 versus James Bond,
Right. Nope, you're right. Then they ended up merging with Amazon.
I remember when MGM Studios used to be a park at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Man, these companies, they just kind of get passed around, don't they?
Just hump each other all day, every day. And apparently Sony the new service is known as Sony Pictures Stream, and it will be available on Prime Video channels.
Okay.
And like Amazon Prime.
I like that better than them starting their own streaming service. I feel like everything is starting its own streaming service now, and I feel if I'd be more likely to watch Sony stuff if I already had an Amazon Prime subscription versus going and buying another new subscription service that's just Sony stuff. That's not something I would do.
I just wish we could go back to one or two streaming services that just got deals from all the different studios to fucking play their shit.
Yeah, agreed. But when it comes down to either adding your stuff to an existing streaming service or starting your own, I'd rather you add it to an existing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So continue with the Marvel news. We finally got an official title and premiere date for the Agatha series?
Once upon a time, I was excited for this series.
Yeah. The excitement has fizzled. I'll be honest. You've taken too long.
One, it's taken too long. Two, they've changed the name of it so many times.
Well, let's go over them, shall we? It was Agatha Coven of Chaos. Then they changed it to Agatha the Darkhold Diaries. Then Agatha House of Harkness. And then I feel like, as a joke, for like 5 minutes on Twitter, it was Agatha the Lying Witch and a Great Wardrobe.
Which, yes, I believe that was a joke. Funny joke, but still.
And now they have confirmed it's just going to be called Agatha All Along, which that's kind of how the character blew up, was because of that song.
Mm-hmm.
And that we are going to be getting the premiere on September 18th.
Also, just a huge prediction. This is how she becomes a good guy.
Okay.
Because in the comics, yeah, she started out kind of shitty, but she ended up being a major good guy after a bit.
So you're saying this series is Agatha's redemption arc?
Sure.
Or at least the first season of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I do.
I can see that.
I will say I was reading that article on Geek Tyrant, and they were talking about how she was describing it, and she was going to say fantastic, but corrected herself to fabulous.
Okay.
And it's like, why would you even make a big deal about saying that? And then it's like, oh yeah, we have the Fantastic Four coming out. So either she didn't want people to think that the Fantastic Four were going to be involved in this, or...
Conspiracy theory hats on, people.
Or the Fantastic Four are going to be involved in this.
Well, the big theory is that the Fantastic Four are the new center of the Marvel Universe, that they're going to be like the new thing that everything is based around.
Right.
Which I don't think would be a terrible decision.
No, well, here, let me go into a little more detail as to why I think that the Fantastic Four might be involved in this.
Do the thing.
Agatha Harkness, in the comics, was the nanny of a certain Franklin Richards.
Oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a route that they could go.
Yeah, and it seems to be a little like, again, why would you even if you were trying to keep it like, oh, I better not say fantastic, why go back and draw attention to the fact that you just said fantastic?
Right.
You know? So
is it a calculated move, or did the actress fumble that hard? Like, which one is it?
Right. So,
and it seems more like a calculated move.
Right. Yeah. I think that there's going to be, considering this is going to be a spinoff of the, WandaVision, and by default, technically Multiverse of Madness, I think that there's going to be some multiversal shenanigans at foot. I would not be surprised if at some point, you know what? Actually, I think it'd be cool if the Fantastic Four, which I heard that Galactus was supposed to be in the Fantastic Four movie. Galactus is coming to Earth to look for Franklin Richards, right?
Makes sense.
I think that in that they are going to have to move Franklin Richards elsewhere. So what do? Multiverse, move him. They hook him up with Agatha as his nanny, and maybe even she does this mind shit to make him forget that he is Franklin Richards or something.
That's now. Do I think? I like it.
Do I think that they can pull this off in this series? That's a stretch, but if they, I don't know. They pulled some weird shit off in WandaVision.
They did. If nothing else, like you said, this first season could be just the redemption arc. Mm-hmm. Agatha's own story, where Agatha becomes the good guy, and then Agatha gets brought in after the Fantastic Four movie, like you said, to be the nanny.
Wait, even better. Franklin Richards moves himself.
Ooh.
Franklin Richards, because he is, much like the Scarlet Witch, a reality warper.
Mm-hmm.
So he moves himself to that world, knowing that his presence on Earth is causing it danger. So I could even see him wiping the mind of his parents, of that Earth, of his existence, a la Spider-Man, moving to that Earth, hiding there, and taking Agatha as his nanny, knowing her history, but also kind of her future.
Okay.
But I could also see him wiping his own memory too, because why not?
Or filling her in and allowing her to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's been a long time since we've gotten to speculate on the MCU, so I'm a big fan of this. But speaking of, we've got rumors. Nothing confirmed by Kevin Feige or Marvel Studios, but it looks like Chris Evans might be returning to Captain America? Question mark? Basically, there was like a big announcement, like a rumor announcement, where it was said on Twitter that he would be returning in a limited series about Steve Rogers. And basically, it would be like a series about him returning each of the Infinity Stones after Endgame, which I think is kind of lame, honestly. I don't think they should revisit that. I feel like that wrapped up where it needed to be, and they don't need to revisit that. I think if he returns as Steve Rogers at all, it should be as like cameos to support Sam Wilson or something like that. But Chris Evans himself responded to that tweet saying, quote unquote, news to me, as like nobody told him he'd be returning as Captain America, which could be, as we've already kind of stated, a calculated response by Chris Evans, because I don't trust anything that any of the actors say anymore after Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire both said we're not coming back as Spider-Man. And they confirmed, they're like, no, we're not in that movie. I wish we could be. It looks like fun. And then boom, there they are. So I don't trust anything that any of them say. Could be a calculated response.
Nope.
But somebody seems to think, due to news that they're getting, that he's coming back. What do you think, Baron?
I think he's coming back. 100%. I think he's coming back, along with Robert Downey Jr. I just don't see them, even if they're just playing alternate reality versions of themselves, I don't see them staying away, especially with the money that Disney has to throw at them.
Sure.
I mean, they got Wolverine back, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and he definitely said he wasn't coming back.
Yeah. And then, you know, when everybody brought that up, you know, he was like, oh, no, what I said was... And, like, literally picked apart the exact words of what he said to make it make sense.
Right.
So, yeah. No. I can see them coming back for sure. However, on that point, can I go back to my rabbit hole?
Absolutely. I'm here for the rabbit hole.
Okay, so I'm just reading up on Franklin Richards and, like, completely remembering certain things and then being either introduced or reintroduced to shit that I just completely forgot about. So there was a group that Franklin Richards was involved in, and there are more people in this group in the MCU, technically, than there are Young Avengers at this point.
Oh, okay.
They're called the Daydreamers.
Okay.
And they are a group that hops through alternate realities.
Okay.
So the people in the group are Man-Thing.
Okay.
He was in Werewolf by Night.
Uh-huh.
Howard the Duck.
Oh, God, which has showed up in several cameos at this point.
Yep. Leech, who was in X-Men 97.
Okay. Are we counting X-Men 97 as, like...
Now I am. Now, yeah.
Okay. Because it conveniently fits in your rabbit hole. That's...
Yes. Artie, I don't remember Artie being in X-Men 97, but I think he might have been. Because Artie and Leech kind of, you know what I mean? They're kind of always together kind of thing. But then Tana Nile, who I have no clue who that is. But yeah, it's kind of weird. But then that was like, they found out that they weren't going to alternate realities. They were just going to worlds that Franklin had created to hang out with them. Which led me to the Onslaught shit, where Franklin took his family and shunted them into another world.
Okay.
So, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think that Franklin Richards, I think, is going to be playing a huge part in the upcoming MCU.
It kind of fits. Yeah.
Because it kind of almost sounds to me like Franklin Richards is like, okay, so because in the original stuff, it was he took the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and he pushed them into their own different worlds, right? I don't know. Do you remember this at all?
I mean, I never read these comic books. So.
Okay. Well, this is where we got Huge Chest Captain America by Rob Liefeld.
Gotcha.
That's where we got that from. But he shunted them into their own worlds, but they were like little balls, like gym balls, like rubber balls that he would carry around with him, right? What if instead of the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, it was Fantastic Four and the X-Men?
Okay.
And they have been in their own worlds, which
they have,
but it was because Franklin put them there to keep them safe.
Oh man, that would it be too early to say that this is what the TVA has Deadpool investigating?
I don't think that's too early at all. I think maybe even they sent him to get Wolverine because they think he's the only one that could put down Franklin.
Right.
There has the mindset that could, which I mean, seems like low-hanging fruit because they could literally get any high-powered villain to do it. But yeah, I don't know.
Right, but remember, TVA, the TVA pretty much is headed up by the God of Stories now.
Correct.
And which means the TVA is making decisions on what would make the best story.
Now, is it headed up by the God of Stories right now, or is it still the Sacred Timeline as overseen by Kang? When is this? When is this happening? When is Deadpool happening?
That's true. I guess we're just going to have to wait and find out.
Yeah, I think the Deadpool movie is going to open up a lot of it's going to answer a lot of questions, and it's going to open up a lot of questions in and of itself.
Or it'll do something where it intentionally obfuscates as much as possible just to be annoying, because that's fucking Deadpool for you.
Yeah. Yep.
But why don't you go ahead and email us at castersguild@gmail.com. Send us in your MCU theories. I want to hear them. Even if it's not theories, just what you want to see out of the MCU. I feel like it's been forever since we've talked about it. Are you even still invested in the MCU? Because I know a lot of people have fallen off, and I'm still here for it. So let's send them in. Send in the opinions, send in the theories. Join us on the Discord. That is where all the fun stuff is happening, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you. Bye. Bye. Giancarlo Esposito as Dr. Doom.